Strong Dads wants to thank 4Speed on 50 for sponsoring today's show. If you like classic cars, great food, and a taste of Americana, you have to visit 4Speed on 50's Diner, located on Route 50 in Lawrenceburg, Indiana. Stop in today for a meal and an experience you won't soon forget at 4Speed on 50's Diner. Welcome to Strong Dads. This is Merle Hutchinson and Carl Andre. We're bringing you another great show.
Well, we sure hope.
Well, we had the intention of making this a really bad show today.
Yes.
So that
the next one would be
you got something
extraordinary
to look forward
in comparison,
to.
right? Yeah.
How you doing?
So I'm doing good. I a little off this morning. I think I told you that a while ago. So if I get tongue-tied or whatever, but life's great.
Yeah, good. We our kids start back to school. Our single kid left in school starts back next week. So everybody around here's got a little kick in their step, unless you're under 18. The one that's under 18, his step is not kicking like it was.
That again.
So remember those days? The start of the school year?
Yeah, well, I was always kind of, I kind of look forward to it.
Did you? You're weird, right?
I am weird.
Linda did that too. We talked about that on one of our shows. She did. She liked school. She liked the social part academically. I hated the first day of school. My nerves, I got all this stimuli of new teacher, new class, new people. How am I going to take all this in at once? And I think it was just like, until I got into high school where I could just say, I don't really care anyway, right? But when I was young, the start of the school year was never easy for me. No. But you jumped right in, huh?
Not necessarily. I said in the first show, I was very shy. So it wasn't really about the social end of it, more probably about the structure.
Okay. Yeah.
And things that I think I said weren't always so good at home.
Yeah.
So, it took some of that pressure off to go somewhere else and in a different environment. And you had a reason to be there, from that standpoint. So there was a multitude of things.
Yeah. All right. Well, hey, we have done 2 shows to this point dealing with pride. At first, it was kind of our anxiety sorts of things, right?
Yeah.
And then the second show, we kind of peeled that back a little bit more, not diagnosing, because that was not our job. We're not trained to do that, but actually pointing out, like, hey, here's
Symptoms.
your sign.
Right, here's your sign.
Yeah. And today, though, I think we're going to hopefully just peel it back right to the absolute core of where
the meat is.
Yeah, where you have to really go. And I think some people might hear what we're going to talk about today and may just turn us off because...
that would hurt my feelings. Is that pride?
Suck it up, Buttercup, right? Yeah, but because this today, what we're going to talk about, I think, is what I think especially just about every man struggles with.
I think every individual. It's the great.
Yeah.
It's the and before we started, I said, to me, this comes down to how do you find true peace and contentment.
Yeah.
But as I look at my life, other than if you have cancer or something like that comes in that you really have no control over, about all of our difficulty in life is tied to pride in some way.
Yeah.
Some of the drama, the tension, the problems, the interpersonal problems, the difficulties. It's all pride when you really boil it down. So this is where the meat is for finding true peace and contentment.
Yeah, which is really different than I think, especially when you're young. If you ask, I think your average, high school to college and even young adult, hey, what's really important to you? What do you want in your life? I just want happiness. And you hear the word happiness.
I want to be happy.
I want to be happy. And I think that's really right where you start to not understand what this is about. Because chasing happiness is really a bottomless pit. Right?
Yeah, I've done that. I've done all the variety of appetites that we develop. And especially, unfortunately, when you're young, there's been so much painted onto you. And I mentioned that earlier too with you. So much that you're looking at the future, trying to figure out how to navigate to get to that happiness. So many things have been put onto you that the compass that you're using is really kind of faulty because it's actually leading you in further into a forest. I love Dante's Inferno, where he talks about wandering and being lost in the woods. And it's a metaphor for him being at midlife and having lost his way, And I think a lot of people, we start out with a faulty compass, and we've got all these appetites that have been foisted onto us, and there we are pursuing them.
Yeah. Let me thank our sponsors.
Yep.
And then let's unpeel this a little bit further. So, guys, we do want to thank our sponsors. They're great people, great guys, and business owners that believe in the messages of community and family and faith. And so we just want to thank them. We want to thank Quality Auto Mart, Casey's Outdoor Solutions, and 4Speed on 50 Diner. So if you do business or know anything about any of these guys and you run into them, please thank them. Thank them for their willingness to help support this type of messaging. And so, again, also thank all you who are listening. And as we say all the time, we hope that this strikes a chord with you, but maybe it strikes a chord with somebody in your mind that you're thinking of that you could say, man, this is exactly what so-and-so has been dealing with. Share the show. Share the show with them. And, you know, the bottom line is hopefully we can help some people.
Yeah.
People have helped us in our life. At least
if it's just one.
Yeah.
You know, that's what it comes down to.
Yeah. All right. So we've talked before about Solomon, right? And Ecclesiastes. And
my favorite.
Everything is meaningless, that sort of mentality.
Yeah.
So maybe let's unpeel that a little bit with with where we're going with. I got to get to the meat of what this is actually all all
That's interesting.
Contentment.
You took me in a different direction there. I wasn't ready for that.
I like to do that.
Yeah, that's good. Well, you know, I said Ecclesiastes was the only book of the Bible that I could read when I didn't want to read the Bible, when I didn't want to have anything to do with Christianity. It's been called one of the most dangerous books in the Bible. Almost didn't make it in the Bible, but the message in there, you know, when you read it, is just profound. I mean, you look at, and having just lost my father, and my mother has Alzheimer's, and I had the sole responsibility to sort their things out, and then dispose of it. And you really get the things that you accumulate. We always value our things more than anybody else. So when you get the list from the auction house of what the things brought, and you look at it and go, you have to be kidding me, you know?
Oh, yeah.
So you see all this stuff that we do, and he talks about the rich man dies the same death as the fool.
Oh, man, yeah.
And how everything's vanity. Now, I'm not saying that you just roll over and give up, but so many things that we put value on, he really points out in that book that we're here we're just a wisp of smoke. And you're out there chasing, and there's a man that did it all. With multiple zeros, and is
a known smart, wise man, right? You're not just talking somebody who's trudging at the lowest level. This guy would be like multiple doctorate level,
right? Until he let his appetite get the best of him.
Yeah.
So you got the wisest man in the world who made foolish decisions. His appetite got a hold of him, this desire for more, you know, and that was with the women he wasn't supposed to be with, the other religions. And I don't know how the mix is with the listeners. Yeah. The whole thing, I think from here on, we got tools, we got techniques. I frame everything in the relationship to God. So, in Solomon, I look at him, you know, when we're talking about the Bible, to me, that's where the base for contentment comes and directs me. So the Bible talks, as we said, it's replete with references to pride or examples of pride. Yeah. Solomon is, You
know, something, as you were talking about your parents, something that comes to my mind. I visit my dad every week. He's in a nursing home, full care, 90 years old, really can't carry too much of a thought anymore. Yeah. But I go in there, and I know you're even much better at this. You talk about you actually go visit with so many of the other patients that are in there, the residents, I guess is a better word. I look at them and I go, because I eat lunch with them and stuff too. Attorneys,
everything,
professional baseball player, business owners, plumber. Yeah, I mean it's across the board. But when they're in a wheelchair and they're drooling, or somebody feeding them. Yeah, it's a great. Everybody dies the same death, is what you're saying, and it's like, I don't know. You know, it all comes down to, and was there something to that really? I ate lunch with them yesterday, and every single one of them talked about whatever valuable relationship they still had. The one guy still had all of his family was still very active, and that's all he wanted to talk about, his kids, his boys. The other one, he only has one grandson that still connects with him, and he talked about that boy the entire time. And it wasn't about how much money they made. No. It wasn't about anything like that. It was about who is still in their life. And some, of course, have nobody, right? No visitors.
And that's the sad ones. There's several like that.
Yeah. And so anyway, I just got off on that tangent to say it's you look out there and you think, oh, these are just all these dying, sick people. And you're like, no, these people all came. You are them, right? Fast
your
forward
future.
A few years, you
There's
got
your future,
it. You
if you're lucky. Because, one of the things with my mom and dad, I was fortunate in teaching financial peace that I said you need to buy long-term care insurance, which proved to be a godsend. It really did. So where mom is your better element as far as living conditions and things like that. You think about what's going on in some of these other facilities.
Oh, yeah.
But there, what you said, and I want to be very careful here, but one of the table mates often with mom is what I've been told is probably one of the wealthiest people in the county.
Wow.
And I look and I go, here it is.
This is
same table. Sorry about that. The same table. And in the end, it doesn't make any difference. Yeah. You can't take it with you. It's like Dave Ramsey says. He who dies with the most toys is still dead.
You're still dead.
So you're chasing these things, but what you're saying is so vitally important, relationships. And the tragedy that some of those people have, there's one individual there has 6 kids, only one has anything to do with her.
Yeah.
And you can see, even in her state of mind, how painful that is.
Yeah.
And she's still aware. So what's important in life? I mean, you really get a grip on it there.
That actually, it cuts, man, because I my dad is so fortunate. All of us kids still visit him regularly. He's always got somebody in there. He says, no one ever visits me. Like,
I've seen that.
Oh, yeah. Hey, when was the last time? So my brother Ed or Ted or whoever, they don't ever come, but we all do. And but every time we come in, oh, Merle, thanks so much for visiting. And
look who it is.
Yeah. And it just, and I look at so many of the others who no one ever comes to visit, and I think, man. And so, it just is kind of if that doesn't wreck you, if that doesn't humble you to go, I might need to think about this. Yeah. But anyway.
Well, we've got a lot here to cover too, so. Where do you want to go?
Start rolling. Well, let's go back a little bit more about what is the great wrecking ball that you finally have to get to where you say, I have to admit that there's either a God or there's not a God.
Yeah, well, that's where I come down and I say that there's only one really, what we just talked about, there's only one really important decision in life. You might think it's who you're going to marry. You might think it's your career. You might think it's where you're going to live or how many kids you're going to have. But when it's all said and done, and I don't mean to be the Debbie Downer, but what I just said is very quickly, you're going to be forgotten.
Yeah.
You're going to, and people that I've known who had huge impacts on the community and things when they passed, it's amazing how quickly life goes on. Somebody else is put in your desk. Somebody else is going to own that home. Your things are going to be dispersed. So when you think about what's possibly the only lasting and eternal thing is there a God? This is, and I don't know where you're at. If you're listening to this, you may think but personally, I didn't want anything to do with God. I'd had enough growing up. I'd seen enough. But there is really only one important decision, and that is there a God or isn't there? And if there is, what does that mean? Well, I can tell you, it either means God is everything or nothing at all.
Right.
So when we go back to our first show, when we talked about the fall before the fall, we see what pride does when we want to play God. And that's the big thing in our lives. A lot of times it keeps us from submitting to the authority of a God. The other thing is we don't trust God because we don't understand or know him.
Mm-hmm. So you used a word that none of us like, that is submitting. Submitting. And so let's just say I say, okay, I believe there's a God. I believe there's a higher power, okay? And then I just let it go there.
Yeah.
I just leave it there.
That's it.
And I still go on and I live my life. But no, I believe that something big is out there that orchestrated all of this.
Yeah.
Is that enough?
I don't think so.
Why not? I said there's a God.
All right. I know you exist.
Yeah.
What good does that really do? I can see you,
Right.
and I can acknowledge that I know there is a Merle Hutchinson in the world.
Right.
But what does that do for me? Knowing you, getting to know you, understanding the relationship is where the power comes from. Otherwise, you're a figure on a page,
That's right.
or a dot in a group of people. So I don't. Maybe that's the thing that somebody can live with. I can't. I personally feel, and one of the things that really hit me was in the Ten Commandments, "Thou shalt have no other God before me."
Yep.
So I take it as a great burden of sorts that we have to understand. Because I hear people say, "Well, I don't think God would X, Y, Z." Okay, so you've created another God.
Yeah.
You
created the God, yeah.
You have violated this rule. You have a different kind of God than what the real God is.
Yeah. Which makes you God.
Yeah, whatever it is.
In your mind, right?
Whatever it is, because you're crafting a God. And personally, I think a God that you can understand so readily, I don't think that's really, there's any power in that.
Right.
The mystery of God.
So, I'm following you completely. So the idea here is, if I say that's a really cool race car,
Mm-hmm.
that's just an acknowledgement that there's a really cool. But if I'm going to truly, I need to drive it.
You need to beat that thing.
I need to get in it, right? I need to experience it, and once I experience it, I actually notice its abilities, its limits, its feel, everything about it.
Yeah.
And so just walking by the car and acknowledging it really is nothing more than the acknowledgement, but there's no relationship to
Right.
it. And I'm sitting there as I'm talking, I'm thinking, I'm sure this is the case with you too. Your first car. My first car had so many little idiosyncrasies that if the average guy just jumped in to drive it, he'd be like, "What do you got to do to get this thing to run?" Well, you got to turn your head like this. You gotta have the shifter over here.
Yeah.
You gotta tweak the key like this, and then it runs great, right? Like
Mine didn't have that.
No, yours.
No, mine was just don't let anybody run into the back of you because it was a Pinto.
Oh. So my first car was a Volkswagen, and until I got the starter working consistently, I always had to park on a hill, so I could roll start it.
Oh yeah.
And so none of
push started.
You couldn't look at any of my friends and say, "Hey, will you go move my car for me?"
Yeah.
They could be like, "It won't start."
Yeah.
Well, it started. It runs great.
Yeah, it runs. Once you get it pushed and get it going,
and every
right?
once in a while, I'd park on a flat surface somewhere. Hey, guys, I need about 4 of you over here to push me down. But the idea is you understand what it is actually about. And obviously, I'm off on a tangent, but the idea
that's what it is.
Yeah.
Why having a God on the shelf is not really a God. I mean, and that what value is that to you? So your question is, like, I know you exist, I can see you exist, but the beauty of who you are is what's really valuable. And until you can experience that, otherwise you're just another name. You're just something else.
And so, guys, that's why if you're listening, if you just run out of your head and through your mouth the idea that, I believe there's a higher power, but you're not in a level of relationship of actually driving it and experiencing it and letting it drive you, then it's all meaningless what you're saying there. You're still in the God throne in your own mind. Yeah. And so it's not until you go, well, what is it about this God? What does this God actually desire or want, or what's the connection back and forth? And that's where you got to start digging a little bit, right? That's where you got to start testing.
And I've shared a story with you. It was a little pervert that when I was early on in recovery, that heard me lamenting about, I didn't want to have anything to do with God, and I had this really twisted idea and this is where I think a lot of people fall down. This is my personal opinion. You grow up, you watch your parents, you watch other Christians, you hear things on the television, you get a smattering of passages out of the Bible that might be distorted. Somebody's using it to beat you up or to twist the things around so they can justify what they want to do. You see all these things, but you never really take responsibility. So this little guy hears me whining about, man, if I need a higher power, I'm in trouble. I'm in deep caca because I don't want anything to do with that.
Yeah.
And he looks over and he hears my different complaints. He says, "You've got to get rid of your God. He's killing you." And it was one of the most profound things.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah. And I thought to myself, gosh, the idea of scrapping God, it seems so blasphemous.
Yeah.
But what I realized at that age is I had never taken personal responsibility. I had never read the Bible, and I didn't read the Bible for a while, but what I did, I started studying all the world religions and kept looking. And finally, I took ownership. And I think that's so important because you can go into church, you can sit in a church, just like you can sit in the garage. It doesn't make you a car.
Right.
You know, and you can hear about God, and you can see what the world is saying about God, and see what other people do who profess God, and come up with a completely different picture than what God really is. So
yeah, we're on the car talk there a little bit, and the idea, I'm sitting there as you're talking, I'm thinking, I can go from lot to lot and test drive cars my entire life.
All day long.
Yeah, but ultimately, what is the car that's going to perform day in and day out? The one that is practical and useful, and that's the God that you finally came to, like the God of the Bible. And why?
For me,
but then the question is like, why? Why was that the most? Why can I listen to Carl and Merle here and go, why that God?
Well, a lot of people get uptight, and this is going to be controversial. A lot of people get uptight when people read other things and things. They try different things. I did it all. I built a sensory deprivation chamber. I don't remember.
Oh, yeah.
I would have jumped naked on a trampoline at 6 a.m. if it would have meant that I could understand or develop a relationship with God. I think if you're hungry and you stay hungry, the Bible says, seek and you shall find.
Yeah.
Knock and it shall be open. I think when you become complacent, when you have just enough God to be dangerous, that's a problem. I think just search, ask, plod forward. I had what somebody's called for other people divine dissatisfaction. It was just, that's not enough. You just need to keep, God is bigger than anything I'm ever going to really completely understand. But I think in order for you to ditch your pride and be able to understand that it's not about you, you have to trust.
Yeah.
It's like you're not going to step out on a board unless you know that thing's going to hold you. And the closer you can get to understanding that, the more likely you are to be content with what you've got, what's going on in your life, and what's not going on in your life, and trust God. But too many people, they don't have that kind of relationship.
Yeah.
So.
The scripture that rocked me, because I was still wanted to have this thought of there could be other possibilities, the higher beings of all kinds of different.
Oh, I did all that.
Right. I still was there. And, but I was searching. I was searching, like I got to find something because I got to get more meaning and understanding of how to approach the next days. And it was actually verse John 14:6. I am the way, Jesus saying, I am the way, the truth, and the life. Nobody gets to the Father except through me. I had read that many times before, but nobody is a big word.
That's a huge word. Nobody.
Nobody, like not one, gets to the Father except through me. And I was at this pivot point where I was, I still wanted all the options on the table.
Yeah.
And it kind of came down to me a little bit of like C.S. Lewis. You're either going to believe that Jesus is who he says he is,
or he's a madman.
Or he's a madman.
Right.
Like it's either one or the other, right? And I was at that pivot point of like, okay, like I've been learning and reading a lot about this Jesus guy who has flipped the whole world upside down, right? He's created the calendars are based off of him, the laws, the rules, everything somehow are rooted to him in some way.
Nobody's had more impact.
No one's been tested more. Historically researched and tested. Socrates,
stood up
Pluto,
to it.
None of them have ever been through, and he continues to, they can't verify that he was a fraud.
Yeah.
They can only verify that he wasn't. And so that was really a game changer for me, that if he is who he says he is, and he says nobody, it was time for me to go, then he is my God. Mm-hmm. It was really that for me. And I know that's so simple, but then at that point, I could read his words and go, Well, he said it, so it's truth. He said it. It's truth.
Yeah.
And if I don't agree with it, guess who's wrong? Which was some of that humbling, like, I don't agree.
Wrong?
Now, if I don't, sometimes I don't understand it.
Right.
And that's frequent. Like, I don't quite get that. And then you got to learn, like, well, what was the context of what he was saying it in? And what was maybe some of the Hebrew or Greek that he was pulling from that maybe our language doesn't include well, you know? But that was a game changer for me. Like, okay, he either is who he says he is or he's not. Which one you going to buy?
Right. You know, you said something a while ago I want to make clear, and not that I have to justify. For some of you listening out there, we're talking about the Bible, we're talking about God. And for most people, you know, I said I did, you know, you were talking about earlier about all the different, I thought, I looked into panspermia. I don't know if you know what that is or not.
That sounds weird.
Okay. It's where.
Panspermia?
Yeah, it's where the theory that.
Is that like all sperm?
No. Aliens came down. You know, the Garden of Eden was probably an alien ship, you know, and then, you know, and they planted life. I mean, do not, I can't tell you how much I have digested. You know, when it came to evolution, I read Origin of the Species. Read, you know, I went through took it all apart, all these components that are vying for their competition, trying to erode. Today, I realize trying to erode the base. You know, this frontal attack that's been on the Bible for years, millennia. So it wasn't just a focus on that. I looked at the science. I looked at all these things. And for me, back real quick, when I read the line in the Bible, when I started reading the Bible simply for an intellectual pursuit, I'm just going to read it to see what this thing says. I got to either Jesus got up or he didn't. And if he didn't, then this is meaningless.
Yeah.
That to me was the big sentence. I looked at it and said, okay, so how do I know? And then I started studying the lives of the apostles and how they died.
Yeah.
Listen, folks, I'm going to tell you, no matter how big a con it would be that I'd be trying to pull off, you start threatening to cut me in two with a saw or hang me upside. Yeah. You know, these people.
Yeah, I'm going to bail.
I'm going to bail. Yeah. This is, I didn't make the money off of this I wanted or get the fame I wanted. It is a lie. That to me was the turning point. It's like, look at their lives. These people were convinced. They died horrible deaths, and they pursued it to the end. They saw him, and I just said, that's good enough for me.
Yeah.
Seriously.
Yeah, guys, thanks again for listening. Thanks to our sponsors, Quality Auto Mart, Casey's Outdoor Solutions, and the 4-Speed on 50 Diner. So, again, thanks to those guys. We also thank all you guys. Hey, if we can help you in any way, please, you can go to the website of rocksolidfamilies.org, and there's a phone number there as well. At our office, it's 812-576-7625. You got a question or you just want to run something by us in some way, please feel free to reach out. So, pretty much all we got. Go out there and be a strong dad. Strong Dads wants to thank Quality Auto Mart and Service for being a proud sponsor of the Strong Dads podcast. Started in 1985 and going strong for all these years. Recently, Quality Auto Mart has transitioned from owners of Mark and Nancy Repke to longtime employee Fred and Lorene Venus. For all your automotive needs and golf cart needs, check out Quality Auto Mart, located across from Indian Lakes on Highway 46 outside of Batesville, Indiana. Casey's is a premier garden center and gift shop located in Lawrenceburg, Indiana. Casey's offers a wide selection of plants, landscaping materials, home and garden decor, and gifts for every occasion. Casey's is committed to providing exceptional service, a unique shopping experience, and value to every customer. Stop in and see what makes Casey's so unique. Located at 21481 State Line Road, Lawrenceburg, Indiana, or call 812-537-3800. Let Casey's help you add beauty to your home.